How can a year of freedom end with a server saying my full name in a bright public place? Why did he stand so calm while I held a notice about my baby and a schedule with my name already printed? What happens when the man I shamed chooses the law instead of me? Before we dive deeper into the story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. Zuleika Rowan is my name, and I left Jonah Hale at the altar. People said I was cruel. I said I was brave. I told everyone the air in that church felt like a box. I walked out in my white dress and said I needed time to find myself. A year later, I came back with a belly and a plan. The baby's father is my ex, Raphael. He called me a wildfire and then disappeared when real life began. I decided Jonah should prove he was the better man. I said taking me back would heal what he called broken. Jonah lived neat. His kindness was steady and quiet. I hated how it made me look messy. I told my mother that Jonah owed me a chance. She posted quotes about forgiveness and tagged me. His mother, Iris, stayed polite and cold. I said she was controlling. I told myself my story needed a hero, and I picked me. I laid ultrasound photos on Jonah's kitchen island and called them our future. He asked for time. I said time was risky for a pregnant woman. He moved a mug to the far counter. I called the space cruel. I came back to Jonah's house with a smile I called brave. I said I was ready to fix us. I told myself he should feel lucky that I chose him after a wild year. The kitchen looked the same as before, the wedding day I left. Counters clean, the soft hum of the fridge, 2 plain mugs. I laid the ultrasound photos on the island like a gift. I said this baby needed a safe name and a steady home. I said he was the only man who had ever been steady for me. I acted as if choosing him now erased what I did at the church. Jonah stood with his hands on the back of a chair. He asked when I had last seen Raphael. I said that was not the point. I said the point was the future and how we could be a real family. He asked about dates. I said stress made dates blur. I laughed in a light way and reached for water. The air in the room felt thin. He did not move to hug me. I told myself he was in shock and that my job was to lead. I tried to make the house feel like mine again. I opened drawers and closed them. I straightened a towel and called it nesting. I walked the hallway and checked the bedroom like I had never left. I told myself the past year had just been a bad weather system. I used words like growth and journey and peace. I said he had always been my true north. I said running from the wedding was a form of protection for both of us. I said now I was ready for courage in the real sense. I liked my own language because it made me sound clean. He poured water into a glass and set it by the sink. He asked if I planned to co-parent with Raphael. I said Raphael had drifted. I said he loved art more than calendars. I said Jonah had always been calendar strong, which was why I needed him. I treated that as a compliment. He did not smile. He asked if I would stop posting about the altar. I said people needed hope. I said my story helped women breathe. I made his discomfort proof of his small vision. I moved close and touched his sleeve. I said stress was not good for pregnancy and that he should not cause any. I said the doctor had warned me about tension. I did not say the doctor had also warned me about chaos. I framed myself as fragile, so he would feel heavy and responsible. He stayed quiet, and that quiet made me angry. I wanted a scene with tears and grabbing hands, something I could later call passion. Instead, there was soft light and a clock I did not want to hear. On the island sat a thin binder labeled Utilities. It was thicker than I remembered for bills. I flipped it open. Tabs without names, only colors. I asked if he had become an office manager at home. He said order helped. I said order was a cage. I closed the binder and slid the ultrasound closer to him. I said the baby needed his last name and his calm. I said, people forgive a bride who runs if she comes back wiser. I said he could be the hero now. I heard myself and still liked the sound. He made tea and set 2 mugs on opposite counters. He did it without drama, like muscle memory. I looked at the mugs and said the gap between them was a message. He said space helps people think. I said space was cruel when a woman is carrying life. I put a hand on my belly and spoke softly about rest and vitamins and community. I said, the community center wanted me to lead a story night about second chances. He asked if I had told them I left him at the altar. I said people love a redemption arc. I asked if I could stay in the bedroom. He said the guest room would be better for now. I said separate rooms send a wrong signal. He said signals had been loud enough this year. I pressed my lips together and framed his tone as cold. Coldness gives me material. I said Iris, his mother, would be thrilled to have a grandchild that looked like him. He did not respond to that. I said Mira, my mother, had already posted a quote about Grace. He kept his eyes level. I walked upstairs and opened the bedroom door. The bed was made with the hospital corners he liked. On the dresser sat a small dish with a key I did not recognize. It looked new, bright metal with a plain head. I told myself he had changed locks to feel in control. I went back to the hall and paused by the guest room. The duvet had a slight crease, as if someone had slept there recently. I filed it as proof of his drama and told myself he missed me. When I returned to the kitchen, his laptop screen glowed faintly. A spreadsheet sat open with small columns of initials and dates. I took a step closer. He touched the trackpad and the window minimized. I said that looked secretive. He said it was work. I said work always came first with him. I said now there was a baby and work should come second. He did not reply. He rinsed the glass and placed it upside down on the rack, as if the right angle could hold the roof up. I asked about the wedding day again, to rewrite the script. I said I walked away to save us both from a bad start. I said no one talks about women who know when to pause. I said I was back because I had grown. I said the baby taught me to choose love. He asked if I was ready to tell the truth to the families. I said truth is a tone, not a timeline. I said I would frame it gently. I said we could hold a dinner and show unity. He did not promise anything. He checked the time and said he had to step out early tomorrow. I asked where. He said he had errands. I asked if he would drive me to the clinic next week. He said we would plan. I said planning was my strong suit when I was supported. I pressed my palm to the ultrasound and asked if he could hold it. He touched the edge and then moved his hand away. I called that hesitation fear. Fear makes me feel strong. Night settled. I changed into soft clothes and brushed my hair at the sink like an old habit. When I walked past his phone on the nightstand, the screen lit for a second. A text preview showed and then vanished, deleted with a quick swipe. I said that looked sneaky. He said he did not want late pings to disturb anyone. I said secrets were worse than pings. He did not rise to the bait. The quiet felt like a wall I could not climb. I went into the hall and paused. From the desk came a small sound, like a key turning. A drawer clicked shut as I reached the doorway. I asked what he was storing. He said he was organizing household items. I said households did not need locks. He said order brings peace. I called it control again, because control is the word that paints me as a rebel. His phone lit in the dark, with a calendar note labeled Harbour Annex 9:40 a.m., then went silent as the desk drawer clicked locked. The cliffhanger was sharp. A place and a time I did not know had entered our house, and it did not ask me first. I arrived at the community centre early and told myself it was a fresh start. I wore a soft cardigan and an open smile. I wanted the lobby to see a calm mother-to-be who had matured. The front desk had a vase of fake tulips. I straightened them as if I owned the space. I said to the receptionist that the day would be full. She agreed and asked about the baby. I said the baby loved attention already. I placed my tote on the counter so the ultrasound photo peeked out. I liked the effect. Graham, my manager, waved from the glass corridor and asked if we could have a quick word after I clocked in. He kept the tone light. I told him, of course, and that I had exciting plans for a story night about second chances. He said we should review optics first. He used that word like a soft hammer. I nodded and laughed as if optics were cute. I decided to set my own stage before he could. Jonah walked in carrying a donation box for the food pantry. He wore a clean jacket and looked rested. The volunteers greeted him by name. I stepped forward and said we could take a photo together for the center page. I said the community loved good men. He said he had to drop the box and go. He kept his voice even and thanked the receptionist for the form. I felt ignored. I lifted my phone anyway and said one quick snap would help the drive. He said another time. I called that cold in my head and told myself he was shy. I moved closer to him and said we should announce that we were rebuilding for the baby. I said the city loved a redemption story with a bump. He said we could talk later. He took a pen and signed the pantry sheet. While he signed, his phone lit in his pocket with the word private on the lock screen. He pressed the side button and let it go dark again. I decided it was a boring work call. I decided he was trying to make me feel outside his circle. That feeling boiled fast. Graham gestured toward the HR room. The glass door closed with a soft hush. He thanked me for coming in early. He said he had seen a clip that Joy posted last night where I talked about the altar and about choosing myself. He said board members followed our social tags and had concerns. He asked if I could pause public storytelling about my personal life for now. I told him people needed models of courage. I said my wedding exit was a healthy boundary. I said the baby was proof the universe rewards risk. He said the center served families who needed calm. He repeated calm in a way that made it sound like policy. I smiled at him and said I would be mindful. I did not mean it. While we spoke, a printer on the counter spooled for a second and ejected a blank page. The noise made us both look. Graham tapped the tray and cleared the sheet. He said the machine had a mind of its own. I said hardware liked a little drama. I took the moment to slip my phone out and check my notifications. Joy had tagged me with a caption that read, "Altar girl turns queen." The thumbnail showed me on the rooftop with one hand on my stomach. I liked the post without thinking. We stepped back into the lobby. Jonah was at reception again, placing a sealed envelope in the outbox slot. He thanked the receptionist and turned to leave. I asked loudly if he could confirm dinner with my mother for tonight. I said Mira already wrote a caption about healing. He said he would check his schedule. He kept moving. I said to the receptionist that he was very busy because he was important. The receptionist nodded in the way people do when they want distance from a story. I took my tote to the staff room and staged a small photo. A cup of tea, the ultrasound, a sticky note that said, "Breathe." I posted it with a line about building soft places. Within minutes, Joy commented and added heart emojis. Tomas sent me a DM saying the rooftop clip was doing numbers. I told myself this was proof I was helping women. I told myself critics were jealous. Graham found me again and asked if we could add a content freeze to my file, just for a week. He said the center had donors with conservative tastes. I said donors loved bravery when it made headlines. He kept a steady face and said my job involved trust. I said I could be trusted to shine. He did not argue. He asked me to help set up the multi-purpose room for a prenatal info night banner. The word prenatal sounded like power in my head. I rolled a cart of chairs while checking my phone. Mia, a volunteer, asked if I wanted lemon water. I said yes, and told her I was preparing to be an example of modern love. She looked confused and said congrats again. I liked that confusion because it meant I could define terms. I messaged my mother and said to book the family restaurant for a long table this weekend. I said we would use it to show unity. She replied with a photo of a quote card about grace. I told her to tag Jonah's last name this time. She sent a thumbs up. At noon, Graham asked me to step into HR for the quick word he had promised. He said one of the board members had watched my altar monologue and worried it encouraged instability. He asked me to unlist the video. I said the monologue was art and that the baby responded well to applause. He looked at my belly and then at the ceiling. He said he supported healthy families. I said healthy looked different now. He thanked me for hearing him and slid a paper across the desk that summarized the center's social media guidelines. It had no letterhead, just bullet points. I felt irritated that it did not give me something easy to attack. Back at the front desk, I saw a stack of mail. On top sat a padded mailer with a typed label. I asked the receptionist if we had new donors. She said she was not sure. She asked if I could drop a box of flyers at the gym. I said I could, and took the long way through the lobby where the light was better for photos. I filmed a slow pan of the entrance and added music. I posted it with the line "We show up for each other." I tagged Jonah and the center. The post got quick likes. The dopamine hit felt like proof again. When I reached the gym, a small group was stretching under the prenatal banner. A woman asked how far along I was. I said far enough to know value. She smiled but looked away quickly. I decided she was shy. I took a mirror photo with the banner behind me and my hand on my stomach. I sent it to Joy. She replied with a crown emoji and said the rooftop crowd wanted an update. I told her to tease that Jonah and I would go public at a family dinner. She said she would draft a caption that promised tears. On my break, I walked past the lobby again and saw Jonah return with a neat folder. He placed it on the counter, then spoke quietly to the receptionist about a drop-off for later in the week. His phone lit in his hand with the label "Meeting," personal at a date I did not catch. He tapped to dismiss it. I told myself he was finally planning our future dinner. He thanked the receptionist and left. I sat in a chair and pretended to read an events calendar. My heart raced for no clear reason. Before I clocked out, Graham asked if I could confirm tomorrow's meeting time. He said the board liked noon. I said noon was fine, and that I would prepare a gentle presentation on redemption branding. He gave a small nod and asked me to keep posts soft. I said I was always soft. He did not smile. As I stepped outside, my phone blew up with tags and comments. Joy had posted a split screen, my belly photo and a rooftop clip of me saying a real man accepts layered love. The caption said, "Reunion arc loading." New followers appeared. Old friends added remarks that cut. I told myself metrics were truth. Graham requested the quick word about optics while, at the same time, Joy's tags began to climb, and the HR printer spooled a stray page. The cliffhanger settled on my screen. Which clip would the board watch first, the altar story or the rooftop boast, and how fast would it reach Jonah's mother before dinner? I told myself the rooftop would fix my image. Joy said the light was kind and the music was easy. Tomas said a crowd was already there, and people wanted a speech. I said I would only stay an hour. I wore a dress that made my belly look like a statement, not a problem. I told myself this was leadership. I told myself Jonah would see me shining and remember how lucky he was to have me back. The elevator doors opened to string lights and high chatter. The city spread out like a backdrop made for me. Joy waved her phone and said the angle by the glass would be perfect. I pretended to resist. I moved to the rail anyway. Marco was not here. I did not need him tonight. I needed a stage. I tilted my head and let Joy film a slow pan. I said the city loved a comeback. She said the algorithm loved a bump. I laughed at the word like it was new. Tomas pulled me toward a low table with tall drinks. He said the room needed an opening line. I said I was not doing lines. He tapped a glass and called for quiet. My heart jumped in the way I like. People looked up. I placed a hand on my belly and told myself to speak in a kind voice. I said, life was messy and brave. I said I chose myself last year because the air had been wrong. I said, courage changes shape. I did not say Jonah's name. I let people fill it in. A few friends clapped. Others watched with careful faces. By the bar, the small receipt printer spat a thin strip, then another. The sound cut through the music for a second. I saw Jonah in the doorway near the exit. He wore a dark jacket and had his hands in his pockets. He did not look at me. He greeted the server with a small nod and stepped aside. I felt irritation rise. I wanted him front and center, forced to see me. I told myself to go bigger, so even his calm would look like fear. Joy whispered that the light was perfect now. Thomas lifted his camera and said one toast for the clip. Someone started a chant. Toast, toast, toast. The chant made me feel tall. I held my glass and said second chances build stronger homes. I said, real men do not punish a woman for knowing her own heart. I let that line sit and watched eyes turn toward Jonah. He did not react. He spoke quietly to a busser and moved along the back wall. I called him shy in my head and used the word like a fault. I moved to center. I said a family is more than blood. I said spirit is a choice. I said a true partner accepts layered love. I slid my hand along the curve of my dress and held my chin high. A few people cheered. A woman near the rail frowned and looked at Jonah, then back at me. I told myself she was jealous of my nerve. Thomas nodded at me to keep going. I wanted to make the room gasp. I said my baby would be born into a house that said yes. Phones rose like a little forest. The flash from one camera popped and turned faces flat white for a second. In the bright wash, I saw Jonah's profile again. Calm, almost kind. He looked like the person handing out coats at a school event. Not my villain. Not my scene partner. That lack of heat made my skin itch. I decided to turn it for the clip. I said some men love a woman's fire only if they can hold the hose. A few people laughed too hard. Others stared at the floor. Joy handed me her phone so I could read comments live. Hearts floated up the screen. A new handle I did not know typed that I was brave and selfish at the same time. I liked the word brave and ignored the rest. Tomas said one more for the people in the back. The chant returned. One more, one more. I felt the city lean in. I said I left the altar to save a life, and now I had two. I touched my stomach again. I waited for the roar. It came, but thinner than I wanted. I stepped toward Jonah as if to include him. He did not move. He told Tomas something in a level tone and pointed toward the stairwell, perhaps about a blocked walkway. Tomas nodded and shifted his tripod. I told myself Jonah was trying to direct my light away from me. I said aloud that some men prefer small rooms because big rooms show the truth. People laughed because they were trained by laughter. I lived on that reflex. At the bar, the printer spit a blank page, then stopped. The bartender slapped the side of the machine and shrugged. A server passed with a tray, and I caught my reflection in the mirror behind the liquor bottles. I looked like someone who had learned how to turn shame into content. I liked that girl in the glass. She liked me back. I drifted toward the smoking patio for air. Two women followed with their phones up but their faces soft, not sure if they approved. I told them I was modeling modern family courage. One asked if Jonah was the father. I said family is a choice, fatherhood is a role. The woman winced. I told myself she was slow. I stepped to the rail, where the city hissed and glowed. A group inside started another chant. Toast, toast, toast. I felt pulled by a string. Back inside, Joy whispered that Raf had seen her DM, and that the 3 dots showed for a moment, then disappeared. I said he loved to watch from the shadows. I said he was an artist who hated small minds. I said Jonah would never understand that. Joy nodded because she loves drama. She asked if I would say the line about layered love again for a tighter take. I said yes, because I had built this moment, and it would not happen twice. I raised my glass. I repeated that a true partner accepts layered love. I added that some men are landing pads, not cages. I told the room I needed space to breathe, and someone steady to keep the floor from shaking. I stared at Jonah when I said steady. He did not flinch. He checked his watch. He spoke to Tomas again, short and quiet. Tomas shifted his camera to include both of us in the frame. I felt the frame like a fence and decided to jump it. I walked closer and said I was ready to give our city a new kind of family. I did not say whose last name I wanted for the child. I smiled as if the answer was obvious. A couple near the bar whispered to each other. The whisper looked like pity. I spun to the crowd and said pity was the past. I said only courage belonged in this room. I lifted my glass too high. The flash came fast and hot, catching my face in a tight, grim line I did not feel until later. People clapped because the flash told them to. My phone buzzed with a group chat ping. Joy had already posted the clip with a crown emoji. The upload bar filled and blinked done. I saw the caption, "Reunion arc loading." I felt a thrill that tasted like metal. Jonah stepped toward the exit. I wanted him to stop. I said loudly that some men show love by leaving the stage to the mother of their child. The room went quiet in a strange way. He looked at me for one beat, then nodded to the server and kept walking. No anger, no scold, only that tidy calm I hate. It made my words sound like noise. I tried to laugh and said we would give the city what it wanted at dinner this weekend. Joy whooped. Tomas asked for one last cheer. The chant rose and bounced off the glass. The bar printer spat again. The night pressed in. A chant swelled for one more toast while a camera flash burned white across the room. The cliffhanger perched on my screen. Joy's clip began to climb, and I had just promised a public dinner that I could not control. I booked the family restaurant with the long table and called it Peace Night. I told myself a public setting would keep things gentle. I told Mira to wear a soft color and bring a quote card. She said she had 3. I texted Iris a polite invite and added that we wanted unity. She replied with a short, okay. I pretended the brevity meant agreement. Joy asked if she could film. I said no, then said maybe a few stills. I wanted proof of harmony without the mess. When we arrived, the table already held crayons and paper menus for Noah. The lights were warm. I placed the ultrasound at my plate edge where everyone could see it. Jonah came in 2 minutes after us. He greeted the server first, then Iris, then Mira. His eyes moved over me like a person checking weather. He sat at the far end, not dramatic, just measured. I said that distance made it look like we were at odds. He said the room had enough space for comfort. The tone sounded like a rule printed on a sign. I smiled at the server as if we were cute. I opened with safe memories. I said Jonah made the best pancakes. I said we could teach the baby to love weekend mornings. Mira dabbed her eyes. Iris folded her napkin and asked about my work hours. I said the community center adored me and planned a story night. Iris said she hoped I would keep personal matters personal at work. I told myself her words were small-minded. I told the table that forgiveness was a public vitamin. Jonah looked at his water glass and kept his face neutral. Noah wanted the word search on the back of the menu. Jonah slid it over and asked if he could help. I said Jonah was great with puzzles. Mira snapped a photo. I leaned into the frame with my belly and said the word family 2 times. Iris looked at the phone and asked Mira not to post without consent. Mira said she would be tasteful. I said it was fine. Iris stayed silent. The quiet between those 2 women prickled under my skin. I decided to move the room with a speech. I stood, holding the water glass like a toast. I said I had done a hard thing last year because the air felt wrong, and that today we honored growth. I said, kindness looks different in modern life. I said I had chosen to return where real love lived. I said Jonah's steadiness made me brave. I did not apologize. I framed it as insight. A couple at another table turned to look. I felt both admired and judged. I let the judge part make me taller. Jonah thanked the server for a dish and asked if we had enough napkins. Iris asked if I had a birth plan. I said calm lights and music. I said maybe a live poem at the hospital. Iris's mouth did not move. She asked if the father would be present. I said the baby would have everything needed. She said a birth certificate had spaces for names. I said those spaces could be filled with care. Mira cleared her throat and changed the subject to stroller brands. The subject change was a rescue and an insult at once. I leaned toward Jonah and said we should pick a last name. I said the city loved a hyphen. He said the child's legal father would decide. I laughed and said the law loved love stories. Iris said the law loved forms. Her voice was even and not unkind. It somehow felt heavier than mine. I put my hand on my stomach and said stress was not good for the baby. Jonah nodded and said that was exactly why we should avoid public drama. The sentence made me feel small. Plates came, the table filled with useful motions. Noah asked when the baby would arrive. I said in months that felt both far and close. He asked if the baby would have Jonah's last name. The table stilled by a drop. The crayons rolled and touched the fork. I said, names can be chosen with love. Jonah said names would be handled in time. Iris's hand rested flat on her napkin. Mira said families are flexible now. Noah looked between us like a referee who did not want the job. I changed tactics and made a joke about Jonah's socks, always matching the towels. A few smiles appeared out of habit. Jonah thanked the server for hot sauce. I said we could do a reveal dinner soon with cake. Iris said reveal dinners were not her taste. I said tradition needed upgrade. She said dignity did not. The word dignity felt like a door closing slowly and deliberately, with a latch I could not pick. After the check, we moved to the parking lot for hugs that looked like final scenes. Joy, who had slipped in late with Tomas, stayed near the wall and took a wide shot when she thought I wasn't looking. I did not stop her. Proof is proof. Jonah unlocked his car. I heard a small click as the glove box shut. He said he needed to drop off something early tomorrow. I asked if it was about us. He said it was about order. The word order made me want to break a glass just to watch something shatter. We walked to the park because I needed the optics of sunlight in a playground. Benches sat under clean trees. A banner from the community centre fluttered near the field about healthy families. I stood by it for a photo. 2 mothers watched me and then looked away. Noah asked if the baby would live at Jonah's house. I said the baby would have 2 houses with a beautiful bridge between. He asked if bridges ever fell. I said not if people respected them. He said sometimes storms happened. I did not like that child's mind realness. I said grown-ups were in charge of weather. Jonah walked with Noah to the swings and pushed lightly. He did not look back. I sat on the bench with Iris. She said she did not want to fight. She said she wanted stability for her son and for any child near him. I said I wanted the same. She asked if I understood timelines and how they intersected with trust. I said trust could be built in steps. She said steps require solid ground. She stood and called to Noah to put on his jacket. The conversation was not a fight, and it still felt like a loss. On the way home, I stopped at the supermarket because the kitchen needed basics. In the checkout line, the neighbor from our street came up behind me with fruit and a smile that looked like a test. She asked if the rumors were true that Jonah was taking me back. I said families are complex, and we were writing a new chapter. She asked if Jonah was the father. I said fatherhood is a role, and love assigns roles well. Her smile shifted into curiosity bent by pity. The cashier asked if I needed a receipt. I said yes, and then no, and then yes. While the paper rolled, my phone buzzed. The screen showed a missed call. No caller ID. The timestamp was during the park walk. I told myself it was a wrong number. I told myself it was nothing. Outside, the sky looked thin and bright. I turned my key in the car and noticed the nose pointed toward the street instead of the garage. I told myself Jonah liked quick exits for errands. When I opened the console to drop a lip balm, I saw an unfamiliar key on the ring loop. Plain metal, unmarked. I closed it and told myself it was for a storage unit for baby things. That answer made me feel suddenly tired. At home, the house smelled like lemon cleaner and printer toner. The island was clear except for 3 binders labeled Home Auto Bank. I said out loud that Jonah was building a museum. From the study came the soft hum of something winding down. I stepped to the doorway and the noise stopped. I called that creepy in my head. The guest room bed looked smoother than normal, like a photograph of a bed. Nina, no, not Nina, not our life, Noah had left his word search at the restaurant. I told myself I would take it to Iris tomorrow to show goodwill. I placed it on the counter next to the ultrasound. The ultrasound looked like a demand now, not a gift. I took a photo anyway, and wrote a caption about bridges and brave love. I did not post it. I stared at the square and felt a wobble. Noah asked if the baby would have Jonah's last name, and at the same time, my phone showed a missed call from no caller ID. The cliffhanger waited between those two beats. The child's clear question and the unknown number, both pointing at a truth I would not name. I went back to the community center gym for the prenatal info night and told myself I would turn the week. The banner hung bright over the bleachers. I set out chairs in neat rows and imagined the board watching me act responsible. Graham walked over with a clipboard and asked if we could keep the event focused on health. He said a donor had messaged about my rooftop clip. I said art made some people nervous. He said the center loved calm. I nodded and said calm was my new brand. I did not mean it, but it sounded nice in a gym with squeaky floors. Women arrived with water bottles and soft shoes. I stood near the sign-in table with my belly angled, like a message. A volunteer passed me a flyer about safe sleep. I held it up for a photo and drafted a caption about community. Graham asked for a quick word again by the folded mats. He said my stories from last night made some staff uneasy. He used the word optics and then said partners had feelings too. He meant Jonah. I said Jonah was supportive in his way. Graham said he hoped my posts would not trouble him at work. I smiled and said, love always finds its lane. The phrase felt thin as paper. During the talk, my phone buzzed on the table. The screen lit with a preview from Joy that read, Reunion Arc tomorrow. I flipped the phone face down and pretended to take notes. When the Q&A ended, a woman asked if my partner would be in the delivery room. I said I had strong support and a steady home. The answer asked for applause, so a few people clapped. I liked the sound even if it was small. In the lobby, I found a quiet corner to text Jonah that I wanted dinner alone with him tonight. I said we needed to plan the reveal and the last name. He replied that he could be home by 7 and that we should talk after food. The precise tone felt like a meeting invite. I told myself that meant progress. On my way out, I passed the office door. Through the glass, I saw Graham on a headset, nodding with his eyes down. A printer inside spooled a blank page, and then another page with bullet points. The smell of toner drifted down the hall. I told myself officers love drama more than I do. I drove home practicing lines. I planned a scene where I cried softly and then forgave him for being distant. I pictured him begging, or at least reaching. The kitchen lights were on low when I walked in. 3 binders sat on the island. Home, auto, bank. Their spines were straight like guards. I opened the first binder to a divider that said utilities again, still thicker than bills. No letters, only clean tabs. I told myself he was building a shrine to boredom. Jonah came in from the garage with sleeves rolled. He asked if pasta worked. I said a reveal dinner needed better flavor. He said tonight was not for performative nights. I told myself he had used that word on purpose to make me feel cheap. He set a pot to boil and placed 2 mugs on opposite counters again. I pointed at the mugs and said, this picture could be a joke poster about a dead marriage. He said clarity helped reduce harm. The phrase reduce harm sounded like a sign in a clinic. I said the clinic would like to know the father's last name. He did not answer. I tried to light the fuse. I said Iris undermined me at the restaurant. I said Mira only wanted photos. I said the city needed an example of modern love and we could give it. He said he did not want our life to be content. He looked down at his phone and dismissed a small calendar bar that read, "Meeting, personal for a date I could not see." I said planning secret meetings was not kind. He said he was planning boundaries, so the baby would not live in noise. He took something from his pocket and placed it on the desk. It was a single USB stick with today's date written on a white label. He slid it under a folder marked taxes. He closed the drawer, and I heard a soft click. The sound felt like a door sealing on a spaceship. I said I did not like secrets. He said, "Households need systems." He kept his voice even, which made me want to yell just to hear volume. We ate in a quiet that made forks loud. I told him Raf had drifted, and the baby needed a real home. I said Jonah had always been better than Raf. I said taking me back would prove that men could rise. He said I was trying to turn his life into a test. He said tests are for school, not homes. I said I was fragile and the doctor warned me about stress. He said he would always protect a child from stress and from public conflict. He looked at the ultrasound on the island, but did not touch it. After dishes, he opened his laptop. A spreadsheet showed small columns of initials and dates. A CloudSync pop-up rose in the corner and read "File uploaded successfully." He minimized the sheet as I stepped closer. I said secrecy again. He said organization. On the desktop, I saw a neat file tree named Archive A and Archive B. Each looked clean like a museum. I said that much control was not healthy. He said chaos was worse. I moved toward him and said the last name should be Hale because I needed a consistent story. He said stories would not decide anything. He said facts would. He said timelines mattered. I felt heat rise in my neck. I said his calm voice was a kind of cruelty. I said he was punishing me by not exploding. He said he would not fight in front of anyone ever again. He said he would not fight at all. The guest room door stood partly open. I touched it and felt the air cold inside. I said separate rooms were a message. He said the message was caution. He handed me a clean towel for the shower and asked if I had everything I needed for the night. I said I needed a husband. He said I needed rest. He looked at the clock and said he had an early start. I thought of the calendar note I had seen before. Harbour Annex, 9:40 a.m. The name tasted like metal in my mouth. In the hallway, I paused by the desk. The drawer was shut. The taxes folder lay flat. Under it, the line of the USB shape pressed faintly. I reached for the handle. It did not move. From the other room came the soft hum of a shredder, and then a stop as I stepped in. I said shredders are for people with something to hide. He said shredders are for clutter. I hated that none of his answers gave me a surface to climb. I tried one more angle. I said we should plan a live stream at the center to present our family and heal the comments. He said we would not do that. He said he would not be part of a performance about a child. He said he expected peace in this house until decision settled. The word settled felt like a gavel with no judge. He put on headphones and took a short call in the doorway. He said only, "I can confirm receipt." And then, "Yes, I will keep records." And finally, understood. He kept his tone low. When he noticed me listening, he ended the call. I asked who that was. He said a follow-up. He held up his phone, and I saw a message thread titled, "Follow-up." I said he was sneaking. He said he was documenting. He spoke the words like a weather report. I stood by the sink and lifted my chin. I said a man who loves me would claim the baby now and worry about forms later. He said a man who loves a child will not treat them as a tool. He said he would handle this properly. He said properly twice. The word felt like a door that only opened one way. He placed the clean mug on his counter and left mine on the other. He turned off the kitchen light and said goodnight. He walked to the guest room and closed the door softly, like he was protecting a sleeper. The house hummed low. I stood in the dark with my phone glowing on my palm and a caption unsent. He said he would handle it properly, slid a single USB stick labeled with today's date under the taxes folder, closed the locked drawer, and let the shredder go quiet. The cliffhanger tightened. Something had moved beyond my voice, and the next sound would not be applause. I stood in the office tower lobby, waiting for Graham. The marble felt cold. A man in a navy jacket asked my name and held a folder. He said he was serving papers. I read words about a court-ordered DNA test and a temporary contact schedule. The notice gave times and a location for samples. It started today. I called Jonah. It went to voicemail. I texted that stress hurt the baby. Across the lobby, his phone lit with a thread titled, Follow-up. He did not look over. Security logged my name. The elevator bell rang. I stepped in holding the papers.